in awe of her ability in the kitchen. And a lot of our memories have to do with either fixing food or eating it or washing dishes afterwards. And they had a term, they called it Nana hands, because she could stand such hot water when she was washing the dishes. I guess that's a high water mark for when you've arrived as a mother, if you can do the same. She was an accomplished cook, baker, seamstress. Oh, my seamstress. My wife said that when she went off to school, she had dresses that her mom had made, and she was the envy of some of the other girls that she had such very nice things. And gardener. Her homemade bread was perfect. She made delicious cinnamon rolls. I hesitated whether I should read all of this list because it's going to make most of you hungry here as we get into it. But I'm going to do the whole list here because we want you to understand how full her abilities were. Fried fruit pies, Long John sweet rolls. She made melt-in-your-mouth soft, warm biscuits to accompany strawberries or peaches. Homemade gravy with mashed potatoes. Cornmeal mush and chili. Haystacks for Sabbath lunch. Special meals, cakes for birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, and when family got together. I remember at most every meal, she was always saying, "Kevin, have you had enough?" Always enough. When her girls were young, she would spend stolen moments to sew or stay up late at night and get up early in the morning and sew a garment for one of the girls. Her handiwork was perfect. I remember the fun we had when we would go to Cloth World, Hancock's, or TG&Y's to look for fabrics, patterns, sewing notions to make a new project. I also remember her saying when you could get something for a deal, she said, "Well, you can't make it for that." Special deals. I remember Mom taught me how to embroider when I was maybe 12 or 13. Over the years, I have embroidered a lot of tea towels, many fabric squares to make quilts. It's a skill I still enjoy. And I have a mom to thank me for teaching me how to create beautiful things with fabric, needle, and thread. Mom always loved to work outside. In fact, when we had her over at the house one time, she was kind of like a cat on a hot tin roof wanting something to do, and so I said, "Well, we do have some leaves," and boy, she cleaned that up outside our house. Did a good job. And then there wasn't enough to do, so she went and did some work in the backyard and made it look wonderful. She enjoyed weeding, yes, watering, taking care of flower beds. She loved to watch her flowers grow and bloom. And she and Daddy made a big garden every year while they were growing up. She planted vegetables, fruits, watched it grow, and enjoyed the harvest. We had a big yard. Yeah, and your dad liked not only to mow that yard, but the yard behind it, and it all looked so good. Nice. He loved to mow. A lot of time to mow each week during spring and summer. I remember raking the mown grass into piles, pick up and move to other locations in the yard. Sometimes Susan and I would toss the grass at each other or jump into the piles. Itchy stuff though, and we got lots of chiggers. From Mom, I learned to love planting seeds, bulbs, and plants. I love to watch my plants bud, bloom, and make mature plants, and I'm thankful Mom helped me to develop this love of being outdoors to take care of our yard and plants. My life is enriched and more enjoyable by my love for plants. She helped other people too. I'm going to add in here some things that Susan has told me as we go through here. Actually, probably ought to fit it in here because I'll lose that thought for sure. As we were just driving down from further north, we went up there and she would talk about Mom and Daddy used to go to see these people, and I'm not quite sure how they knew them, but they'd go and they'd visit with these people, and then there were these people that they would take to church, and then there was this one, somebody called this week, they would pick up and take him to church school, and they were always going, helping somebody. And then there was another area. She would drive miles to pick up someone who needed a ride to church and take them back home. She spent many years working in the Dorcas Society. We're looking back here at the Community Service Center. She loved working with the ladies of the church as they helped the people who came for assistance. It was her pride and joy to be able to help share her love for Jesus to others here. She was the leader at TCSC. What's that? Tulsa something. Yeah, for many years. The community center, okay. And when she could no longer hold the office, she just came every week to help. When her health declined and she couldn't be there every week with the ladies on Tuesday, she made quilted blankets for the ladies to distribute to people who needed them. For over 40 years, she worked for the New Life Center as their nursing attendant. Starting back in the 1960s and 1970s, the girls had their opportunity to assist with their mom in taking care of kids. It's a nice thing. It helps you to learn about children, and they kind of grow on you, don't they? She loved those babies as if they were own children or grandchildren. It was her joy to care for these little ones and share the lives of the families who attended New Life Center. Some years before the end of their career, Daddy came to help with the babies and toddlers, and they loved those little ones so very much. But that wasn't her only working. Because she believed in Christian education, she got different jobs. Either it was ironing or sewing or working in the school cafeteria or a restaurant, earning money so that her daughters could go to Tulsa Adventist Academy, and then Ozark Academy, and then Southwestern Union College. She worked hard. Those words don't really express what she did. She worked hard. But she did it so that they could have a Christian education. Nobody more special than you girls. During the 73-75 school years, she got the girls signed up for organ lessons. And that has been a very special part of their lives from then on. They have each taken their turns to be church organists. And Gina says, that has made all the difference to my little world. I would not be the person I am today without this talent that Mom provided the opportunity for me to develop. One by one, the daughters left home to start homes and families of their own. Over the years, we would all come home to see Mom and Dad, and later Nana and Papa. As the oldest grandchild, Luke, named Mom and Dad. Holidays at home were always worth all the snow, ice, threats of tornado, or bad weather. And we all know that Oklahoma has its share, and the many miles to get here. To share the hugs and kisses, the food and family, worship and singing, spending time together, always around the table, was always special to Mom and Dad. And we will always carry these memories in our hearts. Both Mom and Dad were dedicated to taking us to church each Sabbath. First to Sand Springs, Seventh-day Adventist Church, where we spent many happy years of Gina's childhood. I don't know that Susan remembers much of that except visits, so she's the tail end there. And as we became school age, we went to Tulsa SDA Church. And then Judy, Susan, she says, and I. So it's all three of the girls were baptized right here. Much later, Judy and Susan had their weddings here. Gina and Ted were married in Maryland. So being reared and growing up in the Seventh-day Adventist Church and going to Adventist schools formed the girls' lives the best way that God could have planned. Mom and Dad gave us their example of how to live godly Christian lives by having worship, praying, singing, caring, supporting our spiritual growth in the Lord. I remember Mom and Daddy's prayers always included asking God to watch over each of their children, and then each of their grandchildren and great-grandchildren, which Pawpaw called his offspring. Sometimes the prayers would be long to include details and specific needs they asked God for. Daddy always thanked God for his family and that his wish and desire that all be in heaven so we could all be together. I learned from my parents that talking with God is a deep, personal, one-on-one conversation that can be either long or short, depending on what you needed to talk to God about. I am so thankful to God for Mom and Dad. Their lives weren't easy, and they weren't perfect. They did the best they could with what God blessed them with. And one day, God's going to say to them, "Welcome, my good and faithful servants. Enter into the joy of thy Lord." Then, as Gina moved away, she said, "When I lived far away from Mom, she would send me cards and letters." That's a special ministry, isn't it? Cards and letters. There's some in this church I hear have got that ministry, and it's a very important one. And Gina's kind of taken that on too, and we appreciate it. She would write 3 or 4 pages of what was doing or what was going on, and then she would end her letters. Yeah, I remember this. "Well, I'll close now. There isn't much news." It's always wonderful to get letters from home. But then Ted and Gina moved back over here and had some special time as Teddy spent a lot of time there at Nan and Papa's. And during that time, Gina described that period, and I can attest that whenever we came for visits, we did some of the same. We'd all go out. She said she was my walking partner around the neighborhood. Yep, that's what we do. We'd all walk. I guess it seemed kind of strange to see a bunch of people walking down the street, but that was fun to do it together. We made many miles to the moon and back during the years we walked together. While we walked through the neighborhood, I'd share with Mom all my thoughts and feelings. She listened. She sure did. Yeah, my favorite memories with Mom were washing dishes, and that's when we'd talk. She could. She really did listen. She was my confidant, my counselor, my advice giver. She was there when I needed to. And did cry. Sorry, folks. Yep, that's true. A strong shoulder to lean on. I love to hug her, and tell her I loved her. She was my example of how to be a loving wife and mother. My best friend in the whole world. I miss her. I've missed her for a long time. But I cling to hope that one day I will see her again and she will be well and perfectly healthy. There's one passage in the Bible that describes Nana, Mom, very, very well. It's Proverbs 31. Her children arise and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. My woman. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive, and beauty is fleeting. But a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Honor her for all that her hands have done, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. Mom was quiet. Unless you were real close to her, you might not have heard too much from her. She didn't go around talking with lots of folks, but she went around doing. I discovered that when we first met. I had to kind of learn her methods a little bit different. She did tell you that she loved you, but mostly she showed you that she loved you. And she has left a powerful legacy in the lives of those that she has touched. I promise not to make this too long, but it always seems kind of like it isn't quite fair when you have so many years of giving, so many years of experience, sacrifice, so many things that she made and did, practical common sense that she gave us. I remember back in the day, of course, now most of us carry a computer in our pockets, you know. But back in the 1980s, I was thinking about getting a computer, and back then that was quite expensive. And I was looking and looking and looking. Wasn't online because you couldn't do that then. I was going to computer magazines and stuff, and I just couldn't find the right one. And she said, well, maybe you don't really need one. Just common sense. I guess I never did buy one while I was out here, but I ended up buying quite a few. She was always accepting from the get-go. I love the way she loved not only me, but all of the family, every one of her brothers and sisters. And if you asked her how many brothers and sisters she'd had, well, there's, and she'd go through the names. Part of a big family, a loving family. We're going to miss her. Part 2. Our scripture was in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. Just about this time last year, Susan was helping me with my mom. And I'm a pastor. I pastor in the Carolinas, have been there since 1985. But I have to confess to you that after encouraging a lot of people about the surety of eternal life, when the one that I thought was always going to be there wasn't going to be there, I went through a mental struggle about it. What do I really believe? And then I remembered our scripture reading and some other scriptures that have some of the same in it. And it said in 1 Corinthians chapter 4, "For if we believe that Jesus died and rose again," that was the phrase. For if we believe that Jesus died and rose again. I said, how do I know that? Well, if you read what he's writing here in 1 Thessalonians, you can see that Paul sure believes it. And in 1 Corinthians, he goes on to explain that that's the fundamental of Christianity, is that we believe that Jesus died and rose again. And so I went back, I said, well, we're disconnected from that. That's been a long time ago. How do we know that that's true? And so I investigated the historical proofs for the resurrection. You can find it in different books, but I went back, and I'm a researcher. I do some writing, and so I looked up all of the original sources, and I discovered that people in that day knew that Jesus had risen again. And then I started thinking about the disciples. And if it was a trick, if it was something that was formulated later, like in some religions they have little myths that they have built their beliefs on. If it was that, how did those folks who were scared to death with the door barred up in the upper room, how did they turn into such bold people that they were not even afraid to lose their lives for the gospel? It's because it was a fact, an incontrovertible fact, that Jesus was not in that tomb that they put him in. He had risen again. And they knew it, just as much as you know your name. Hope none of you are having trouble with that. It was such a certainty. And I said, yep, we know it. We don't just believe it, we know it. And so he says, if we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so them also which sleep in Jesus will God bring with him. Take it to the bank. It's that sure. And so, I had my confidence. And I preached it. And our church said, wow, thank you. That's the best we've ever heard that. I haven't given you all the details. It's on our YouTube feed somewhere in there. But it was that knowledge. It is a certainty. It's not a pretend thing. And so as we have to say goodbye, and I know that whenever we came to visit Nana and Papa, that was always traumatic. Having to say goodbye. They'd be standing there waving their hand and with tears rolling down. Yeah, wiping tears. And we'd be crying in the car, driving off the road, down the road. Look forward to it when we'd see them. Always sad when we had to go. That's the way it is. But we don't have to sorrow, as do others, because we know we'll come back and see him again.